cover the different screens, starting with the contract part 1. A contract is provided that you can edit on. The text area in this has a template, and the template includes the basic terms that you may want to use. You can edit this to your satisfaction. There actually is an additional page where you can add a second page if required. When you initially set up this file, you will be coming from the user or consigner. You would add your own store information in this block, and you have the ability to add your own image or business card in this particular field here. You would enter the contract date, the consignment period, and the consignor commission that is available to the consignor. I will not show you the second page. It's just a duplicate of the first where you can add additional terms and conditions. The Edit Invoice screen provides the same information at the top that you created before. And in this screen, what you're doing is you're taking the individual buyer, and as they purchase items, the first thing you're going to do is look up the item ID for the item being sold. The second thing is to pick the consignor or add the consignor number ID, a description, the sell price that you're actually going to sell the product for. If there's a discounting included where you option out to add a discount, you can add that in the actual record that I'm going to be showing you. The sold at price will be the actual sell price minus the discount, if that discount is offered. And then there's a date sold and the tax that is being issued for each item if you set a tax for the sale of the item in this record. At the edge of the record, you would click here to see the individual portal record. Now I'm going to say also that you want to set the type of $ or price that you're using, symbol for international money, or just the default one that is in there. You can also scroll this all the way down to the bottom where there's an edit screen where you can add an additional money symbol if you do not see the one for your country. When you sell an item, this is where you would be taking the payment. And in the payment area, basically this is for item number 1, invoice number 1. So that is a default that is put in there for you. You pick the date, you put in the selling price, the payment due, then the amount of the payment. If there's anything that is due for an additional payment, you would create a second line when that is paid and add just the amount of the payment due and then the amount that's actually paid to bring it to 0. At the bottom, it will sum and show the sum due. There is a payment portal where you can go look at the individual portal records. And this particular invoice is about 28 lines. If you actually sell more than that, then you click the long print invoice. The long print invoice will give you what is like a report. This is covered in the user guide. And you would use that to print more than 28 lines on an invoice, and that is actually an unlimited amount that you can add on that. Let's go to the individual record and look at how the invoice is documented in the application. This is similar to what you saw on the portal record when you were adding the item to the inventory from the consignor. This information is already provided when you set that up. The information on this is where you're doing the buyer information and adding this where the client information is put in as they purchase the item. The invoice line item for this item only is reflected from the invoice here. There is a fees at the end of this in case you say ship the item by mail or you actually deliver it to a location. There could be a fee that's associated with that. You can also put in information about the actual buyer and notes as to their needs or store needs. There also is a consignor notes field up here that you can add additional information. If there was a pickup fee, then you can add that which explains why there would be fees due to the consignor. Okay. There is also a return to the invoice if you click on the invoice button, and there are two reports. The first one is for the item, and the second one is for the buyer. This will be covered later. Recall, this is just a tour, so it's important to use the user guide to get the details about the usage of this screen. I have skipped over some items. I do want to point out that this icon right here will take you back to the consignor screen. On the consignor screen, I'm going to show you the print invoice. Now, we just talked about the edit invoice. So you can pick the print invoice on this screen, and of course it would have the updated information at the top when you're ready to print it. The box button here will take you back to the working copy or input invoice. This blue button will also take you to the invoice, and you can return again like we just said. If you want to edit or add a customer to the screen, you click the gold button up here and then add the buyer information at this screen. You can either do this during the buyer when he's actually purchasing the item and add his information, or you have the option, as it shows in the user guide, to create a walk-in client where the information is where somebody just walks in and wants to purchase an item and does not want to leave any information. This would be for a cash purchase. Going back to the payment portal, the payment portal is the detail of the actual purchase and the purchase including the payment. Let's go back to the actual portal. Now, I didn't point out, but I will point out now, when you're in the invoice and you want to find out, after you pick the individual item, you want to find out who actually is the person that sold this or is selling this item, which is the consignor ID. You can click on this button right here at the end of the row, and you can see the consignor ID in this screen. When you already picked the item, the consignor ID for that item in that row will display the consignor ID. That needs to be put into the invoice. What this does is it tracks the commissions and where they go. Okay, so that is very important to remember when you're putting an invoice together and adding the lines, to use this button to go find that. It's important to understand that a buyer in this application either needs to or does not need to be added. It depends on how you're tracking the buyer information. If it's a one-time occurrence where it's a cash sale, you do not need to. But if it's a cash other client where they're going to pay by credit card or check, you certainly want to keep the information for the customer. Also, if the customer is going to have stuff shipped to another location, you would want to add them. A buyer also has an ID, just like the consignor does. So as you add a buyer, the default next ID will be put in there for you. You can add a new buyer by clicking the new and then adding the information for that particular buyer. And if you need to, you can add the electronic information just like it was done for the consignor. And then you can add additional information as far as the buyer if he has specific needs or things that you need to copy. And again, like the other screen, there's a drop down for the type of buyer and the day that it was modified or created. And again, there is a pick list for the type of buyer money symbol that is being used throughout the application. You pick it once and then it is taken care of for all of the screens. There's a location tab. There are UDF fields and a pickup and delivery if you're going to be actually delivering this to a location near your store. Let's look at the buyer report. If you click up here at the top or click this tab, this is buyer information, which we're looking at. Let's go look at the buyer report. The buyer report would be for the individual purchases of this person. You can either do a find based on the name, or if you're showing all of the information, then you can pick from whatever the invoice number is, or the buyer ID, which is here, or you can put in the buyer name, and it will build a report by that buyer. Clicking this will take you back to the actual place where the information was gathered as far as a purchase for each individual purchase by this buyer. The item report or consignor report we talked about earlier this is all the consignments by all of the consignors. If you want to look for a particular consignor, you can do just like we did in the past screen on the report. You can do a find and find for the name or the ID, item ID, or the consignor date, for example, our consignor ID and date. And or you can even look for the item picture. If you have the item right in front of you, you can look for the picture to verify that you have the right item. So for example, if I want to return to this particular screen for this particular item, I can click this arrow and it'll take me back into showing me that item and all the details. Is it available? Is it sold? Whatever the status is currently. In this case, this one is for sale. The category is another way to find them, by software in this case. So this is the conclusion for this particular set of reports. Nearing the end of the application, the last two screens we're going to look at are the employee schedule and the employee portal. The schedule is used to itemize each individual employee in your company and build a schedule for them. For example, if I'm looking at Alice Smith, I can check her schedule portal to see when she's supposed to be working. If I needed to, I can get information for directions if somebody had to go get her or pick her up. And now there's UDF fields included in here where you can add additional information like we did on the consignor screen. I can use the button at the end of the portal row, in this particular case for an assignment for a particular workday and time. And I can see all of the Alice Smith work dates and the schedule for her. This would give me this specific one here, but then it would include all of the past and current works assignments for her. I can also jump over to a list view and pick an individual employee and then come back to their schedule and see when they're supposed to work. I can also return to the employee screen. This covers the employee schedule and the employee portal and this screen. Again, like in the other apps screens, there is a title or type of employee. And to show you the UDF fields, there's a series of 4 UDF fields available where you can add additional information and for a title of the field and also for the input field for this employee. Okay. If you need to, you have a calendar where you can track also a schedule where you can print out a calendar schedule. And for this employee, there's also a location where you can go find their exact location based on their address. If you had to go back and find the employee or bring them in if they needed to be brought in. In a lot of businesses where there is a consignment, there are elderly or people that do not have transportation, so this would allow you to go find them if you needed to by their location information. Okay, this concludes the tour of this app. If you have additional questions, please contact the developer on this website. Thank you.